morning. Welcome to our Christmas in July. Isn't it just gorgeous? So, Santa came a little early, wanting to celebrate Christmas in July. So, our 25th person walking through the door today gets a little something from Santa. And it was Mark Zymet from PPI. Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robin. So everyone, thank you. Merry Christmas here in July, and we're pretty excited. We were very happy to have all of you join us today, and thank you very much for all that you do in your leadership roles and the things that you do for your communities, your businesses. We really appreciate everything. So one of the most important things today is that I want to acknowledge a great team that I get to work with. And that team are my board of directors and board of supervisors. They work very, very well together, and they collaborate very well. So my board of directors, would you please stand, please? Come on. Not everybody followed my instructions to sit up at the front. Some did. Thank you, everyone. Give them a round of applause. Great decisions, and they will continue to do that this year. Another thing that I'd like to acknowledge is my committee members. I have so many great committee members. We have the Ag Committee, the Career Intern Committee, the CEO Network, the Human Resource Committee. All of them are very active and very conscious of making sure that their team and their committees are working diligently to have very good, strong meetings. They select their own trainers sometimes and presenters. They work to network with each other, and I think what was really awesome when I was very early on in my job is that we started the quarterly city clerks meeting. And that was one of the neatest experiences that I can honestly say that I had, because these individuals, it was so exciting to see all of them collaborate together. They started sharing with each other. They started saying, hey, do you have that ordinance? Can you share that with me? Do you have this kind of zoning? And everyone was working together, and it brought everyone together between Cassuth and Palo Alto County. And I saw the strong bond and the synergies that were growing there. And they've only continued to grow over the years. And I really, really enjoy all of my committees. So thank you that you work very hard on that. Today, I also want to thank someone very special who I feel very honored and very privileged to have a very dear friend of mine be the presenter today. And she is our director for Iowa Economic Development Authority, Iowa Finance Authority, and Cultural Affairs. Debbie, did you get any new jobs?
I think that's it.
Okay, I still have 6 months before the end of the year. Deanna, thank you also for coming, and thank you for all that you do with our legislators. We greatly appreciate that. Another thing that I'd like to really acknowledge is our intern program. So this is our 24th year with the intern program. And I want to tell you a really cool story about the intern program. Because in my very, very first intern program, which was very small, we had 12 people that were in our intern program, and one of them is now living in Algona, Iowa. One of them has just been named the interim CEO of Pharmacists Mutual. And that was one of our very first interns, and her name is Allison Van Otterloo. She couldn't make it here today, but we are very honored with the fact that we constantly see interns that were once in our program that are now very busy at work, working throughout Kossuth and Palo Alto County. And it's fun to see them and meet them on the street and have them say hello. This year, we have a variety of interns, and I kind of want to show you these busy little elves that are over here. These are ones that when I asked, could you help me today? They were sure willing to help. And this is our future workforce, everyone. These are the people that they have great ideas, they work very hard, and I have to acknowledge my interns because, and one of them couldn't be here today because she's on a family vacation today, which I'm glad she is, but they came at a very special time for me. We really needed them, and these girls made it fun. They came to work with a smile on their face. They came to work with, I can do this, and I'm excited about doing this, and I'm happy to be here. That makes all the difference in the world. I also enjoyed their talents because these two in particular had a lot of great talents, and their skills came out. And I'm so glad that you could join us this summer. And I'm so glad that you all had good internships at your different businesses. Thank you very, very much. So Sean, would you like to join me for a few minutes?
Sure.
Sean is now our new president of Kossuth Palo Alto County Economic Development. And Sean I asked him to do some special things today, but I also asked Sean if he could help me a little bit. And boy, did he jump in. So I'm going to show you all these Christmas trees around here. Sean is one that helped. He came over on Sunday. He helped me set up along with Robin, and I greatly appreciate it. So Sean, thank you, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, Maureen wanted me to wear an elf costume too, but they didn't have a triple XL.
I'm so disappointed.
Thank you, Maureen. Kossuth and Palo Alto Economic Development a joint venture since 2006. At this time, I'd like to have Rick Brennan and Jason Work please come up. Banker, banker, banker. So I'll let the punchlines begin. Good, right? Jason is the outgoing Kossuth Economic Development Director. I'm going to replace him, and I've got very big shoes to fill. Rick is the current Palo Alto Economic Development Director and President, and they've both done wonderful jobs. They've selflessly given their time, their talents, and extremely dedicated to both organizations to make everything flow so smoothly. So at this time, we'd like to present them with some awards.
Thank you very much.
You're not going anywhere. I'll tell the jokes. One more thing, as I mentioned, their dedication to the organization, we'd also like to honor them both with Volunteers of the Year Award.
So I have to tell you, these two, actually all three of them, have worked really in unison together. And I appreciate the extra hours that they give. They're always a phone call away, and the nice part about it is that when I absolutely needed them, they jumped in and said, okay, how can I help? What do we need to have done? What do you need to have? And that's what leadership is all about. And thank you very much. I appreciate it very much. So thank you both.
Thank you, everybody. At this time, I'd like to introduce Bob Jennings, Board Representative for Iowa Lakes Community College. Entertaining, much more.
My first job
I was an elf at Santa's Castle. Also, I have a shirt that says, for St. Patrick's Day, it says world's tallest elf. Leprechaun. Just a few housekeeping things I'd like to remind you of. You have cell phones with you. You didn't leave them in the car. Smartphones now. Please silence them. I have mine silent, but if you hear mine go off, it's because I have a sensor on my arm for being diabetic, and it always says it loses the signal. I don't know why, I'm sitting there right there, but make sure you turn that off, so we appreciate that. Restrooms are back here in the north entrance, and please exit out the main west doors. Our elves have something special to give all of us and keep the Christmas spirit going all year long. And a quick reminder, we also like the photo op with Board of Directors and Board of Supervisors and Debbie following the breakfast. Before I go on, last week I was in Cedar Rapids for the Community Colleges for Iowa conference, which used to be the Iowa Association of Community College Trustees. They rebranded the name. And I became chair on Thursday morning of that board. One-year position, and I'm looking forward to working with Emily Shields, who's the executive director for CC for Iowa. Anyway, Wednesday night I'm in the hotel watering hole, and Emily walks by, and I said, "Emily, how many stories can I tell?" And Emily knows me well enough now, and she says, "1." I said, "3." She said, "1." I said, "3." She said, "1." So I told one story, and then told another, and then told the third one. So at the end, Emily says, "You're on my list." And I'm like, I'm on everybody's list. So I asked Maureen this morning, "How many stories can I tell?" And she said, 0. I'm on her list now. I'm going to tell 1. The reason I'm the Community College for Iowa board chair is because 2 people that were supposed to be board chairs this year retired from their respective community college boards. And one of them was Bob Schaefer from Northeast Iowa Community College. And I saw him Wednesday afternoon. He gives me this advice. He says, "I got advice for you." And I said, "What's that?" And I thought, what kind of advice did Bob Schaefer give me? I've been in front of crowds for a long time, and he said, "Make sure your zipper's zipped up." And I thought, fine. So this is what I said. What Thursday morning, I told that story. I said, fine. So you guys all remember Far Side with Gary Larson from the 80s, the comic? I know the interns won't, but the ones that remember, it's a picture, I have it right here. It's a picture of a conference. And it's in the back, there's a banner that says, "Welcome, A1 Zipper Company." And the CEO of A1 Zipper Company is up front, and he's got a note in his hand, and there's a guy in front of him with anxious eyes. And he says, "Wait a minute, friends. Frank Stevens in marketing, you know Frank, just handed me a note." And the note says, "Bob, your model AA17 is wide open." I'm on somebody's list. Anyway, at this time, we'd like to thank all the sponsors sitting here this morning, our sponsors, for your continued commitment to making a difference. Thank you for all your professional partners for the work for the betterment of this area, the region, and the state of Iowa. This year's sponsors include Aluma, Central Financial Group, the City of Bancroft, the City of Whittemore, Community State Bank, Corn Belt Power Cooperative, Country Made, Erpelting Boykin Company, Farmer State Bank, Fidelity Banking Trust, Hormel Foods, Iowa Lakes Electric Cooperative, Iowa State Bank, Iowa Trust and Savings Bank, Kenda Auto Center, Kossuth Regional Health Center, Northwest Bank, Palo Alto County Health System, Pharmacist Mutual Insurance, Smithfield Hog Production, Snap-on Tools, and West Iowa Bank. So thank you. We'd also like to thank our caterers, Linda Farrell, Gary Person, and crew, Country Made for the delicious cinnamon rolls, and Hormel Foods for the bacon. Thank you. I'd like to thank our RSVP volunteers. volunteers who are helping serve breakfast and assisting this morning. Ladies, thank you. And staff supporting for this organization comes from a dynamic and dedicated staff. And you may not see them all the time, Maureen hinted to it. They're always working behind the scenes, making things look easy and flow seamlessly. But it takes hours of commitment and development, training, and keeping current with state programs to educate all the counties, communities, and the businesses with opportunities. So it's my honor to really acknowledge this professional staff that you all have representing this area, and that we have the real belief and commitment that make this a better place to live, work, and play. Thank you, Cassuth, Colorado. So my next job is, I was looking at this yesterday, I thought, how can I cut this down? You know, I'm an old broadcaster, and broadcasters like to edit, because they only have about 30 seconds. But when you talk about this lady, it takes more than 30 seconds. So I thought, I'm not cutting anything. What's that?
You need to say your step.
Well, some of it was already said. Debbie Durbin, as a long-time economic and community development professional who serves as executive director of the Iowa Economic Development and the Iowa Finance Authority. Durham was named to the position by Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds in January of 2019. Durham was first appointed to lead IDEA in 2011 and has turned the agency into a successful public-private partnership, landed billion-dollar economic development projects for Iowa, and worked tirelessly to expand trade and investment opportunities for the state. She was appointed to lead IFA in 2019 when Governor Reynolds recognized an opportunity to further bolster Iowa's communities and economy by bringing together IFA and IDEA. Durham prides herself on building coalitions, supporting new ventures, and strengthening the state industries and communities. Prior to joining IDEA, IFA, Durham served as president of the Siouxland Chamber of Commerce. Her several accolades include being recognized as one of the most influential business leaders in the 2020 and 2019 Des Moines Business Cooperative list, and receiving the Technology Association of Iowa Legislative Advocacy Leader Award in 2017. Durham was also recognized by the Business Record as Woman of Influence in 2016, and she received the Christian Peterson Design Award from Iowa State University's College of Design in 2015. Durham holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration, Marketing, and Management from Missouri Southern State University. So everyone, please welcome Debbie Durham.
Well, first of all, Merry Christmas in July. It is such a pleasure to be here.
Can you hear me? Yes. So Merry Christmas in July. I'm going to tell you a little secret about myself. I love Christmas, by the way. I have a Christmas tree in every single room of the house. And we start new traditions almost every year. It's exhausting, actually, what it is. And so how many of you have ever heard of the peppermint pig tradition? I can't believe that. You know, Iowa's #1 pork producer. Everybody go home on your line, look for the peppermint pig. It may become your new tradition as well. So first of all, I want to thank my dear friend, Maureen. You know, first of all, you know I love you as a friend, but you are one of the best. I mean, when it comes to economic development, you're a real pro. And it just goes to show when you were talking about your internship program, which is 25 years, is that what you said? 24, okay, well, it's gonna be 25, right? I mean, yeah, because you'll keep going. To think about that, you're leading the way. Now, everybody has an internship program, because we know internships, apprenticeships, you know, connecting our youth with opportunities in their backyard is so important. And you guys have been leading on that long before anyone else. And Bob, where did Bob go? Oh, there you are. You're a great MC, by the way. I did see Marie do this a few times because you didn't know exactly what you were going to say. I find that refreshing myself. All right. And of course, joining me today is Deanna Triplett. Deanna leads public policy for the state and does a phenomenal job on the Hill. Actually does a much better job when I don't go up there. I don't know what that says. And then, of course, Lisa Shimkat. You all know Lisa from SBDC. Lisa is on our board. And so, again, glad to have her here as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a bunch of information because I'm going to So I always start every presentation with this slide, and the reason I do, it's because it's how we approach growth in the state of Iowa. We take an extremely holistic approach. So what does that mean? Well, it is all about building a business climate in which our businesses can prosper. And that's everything around taxation, regulatory, workforce development, infrastructure, transportation grids, sewer and water. But I would tell you today, it is equally, if not almost more important, that we're building communities in which people want to live. Because the greatest challenge we all have, Iowa's biggest challenge right now is a population problem, not unlike most of the Midwest. And so we have to constantly recruit talent. And they're recruited not only by the local companies, but they're really recruited by this place they call home, right? So that's everything from housing and quality of life initiatives, recreation, all of those things. And then, of course, I always say we are in the people business. We're very people-centric with all of our policies, because if we're, our policy is, I'm not a director of economic development that believes all jobs are good jobs or all development is good development, right? We want those development opportunities and those jobs that are raising the standard of living for Iowans. And so that is the way we approach growth. The other thing we do, which is very elementary, is we play to our strengths. We play to who we are. And if you think of Iowa, now of course ag is extremely important and it props up many of these verticals, right? I think the most recent number I saw that 10% of the nation's food supply comes from Iowa. I mean, not only do we feed and fuel the world, so I'm certainly not diminishing the importance of ag. But these are our traded clusters, and these are really wealth-creating clusters. So we're talking about advanced manufacturing, our number one, that's from a state GDP, that's the number one sector. We talk about biosciences, which is the deepest sector. We're going to talk about some incredible opportunities happening in this space right now. Finance and insurance, and I will tell you, a few years ago, a New York Times reporter called me and asked, first of all, she asked, where is Iowa? To begin with, right? Where are you, right? So we had to have a little geography lesson of exactly where Iowa is, and we are part of the United States, and we do not grow potatoes, right? And so the reason she called was because she just saw that we were taken at the time, we were neck to neck with Connecticut, and everybody thinks of Connecticut as being the insurance capital of the world, the home of Hartford, right? And we have taken over the number one position in the country for insurance and finance. And she asked how that happened, and I said, well, it's a very easy answer. All you had to do is see what the legislature in Connecticut was doing, because they had forgot who brought them to prosperity. And so what they started doing is passing laws and regulations that were very unfriendly to that industry. Policymakers have to realize that companies actually move with their feet, right? And so we're happy to do that, because in Iowa we don't do that. We take care of our backyard so that nobody else does. And so that's who we are. And then I always show innovation or technology, which really these are mature platforms. If we're not innovating, if we're not looking at what's next, we're going to lose ground in these sectors. And then, of course, ed tech. And ed tech is not just the way we deliver education today from K through 12. It's really the way we train this, whether it's using augmented reality and some incredibly exciting things happening with our workforce. So that's who we are. So what we're going to touch on today, we're going to touch upon these pillars, from workforce and infrastructure all the way up to quality of life. On the workforce front, there are some good news stories here. Now, you guys may not be feeling it as you're still trying to fill vacant positions, right? So again, population problem. So we have, if you go to IWD's website today, you're going to see double the number of jobs than we have people unemployed, at least. And I would tell you that's very conservative, because many companies aren't listing all their jobs on workforce development. So it's actually much higher than that. So this is when I say to an audience, those of you who can birth more babies should think about that, right? We need to do that. It's a good thing for your state. I tell that to my children all the time, so I'm now the grandmother of 4 grandsons, right? I could not be happier. But labor participation pre-COVID was 70.3%, which was second highest in the country. Iowans were, right? We know that, right? Let me just give you a comparison. That may not seem high to a lot of you, but we competed with a project recently in Oklahoma. Their labor participation is like in the 50s, so that tells you something. We got down to about 65 in the 65, 66 during COVID, so we're inching up every time, right? I mean, every month we're seeing an increase in that. It's something that we're watching. So if you really drill down, we're about 20,000 below pre-pandemic high. Now, manufacturing in April in Iowa, or in May, hit its highest level since May of 2008. So what happened during COVID? Here's the people that left the workforce. Retirees. In Iowa, retirees work longer than their retirement year, right? By many years, actually. And so they left during COVID, and of course you can understand that. Nobody knew what tomorrow was gonna bring, right? At that time, our 401ks were extremely healthy. Mine are looking better, but there for a while, I just shredded it when it came in the door. I couldn't even look at it, right? And so that was, and of course, that's before inflation really started hitting. The second thing is women exited the marketplace by record numbers. Again, not surprising. 33% of our daycares closed in the last 5 years, right? We were doing online education, not an easy thing to do. And so it wasn't surprising. But now we're seeing nationally women's employment has hit a record high, which we love to see. Now we're getting Iowa numbers, but I think that's true probably here as well. The statistic that is still alarming to me, and should be to all of us, is the population segment that has checked out and is still not returned to the workforce is young men 24 to 35. That's concerning, right? So where are they? I don't know. I don't know if they're back home in their parents' basements. I don't know. I don't know if they're out finding themselves. All I know is they need to find themselves back to work, right? Because we need them. Now the good news is in Iowa, we've seen a population increase of about 6,000 people. Now that may not seem a lot, but that's trending, particularly if you look at states like Illinois. Illinois, if public policy matters, Illinois is losing people. I guarantee you the same is going to be said with Minnesota in the next few years based on what their legislature just did on some of the most unfriendly business taxes I've seen in a very long time. And so, of course, you can see that we're going to take advantage of that because we're going to do a big marketing campaign in Minnesota this year. But look at where people are coming from. They're coming from California, right? Since we get the surrendering data, credential surrendering data, which means in Iowa you have to turn in your driver's license. So now we have access to that. Now we don't know by person, we just know it in aggregate. So we know where people are moving. We know the counties, the 3 counties in California that we're going to be marketing to. That's how sophisticated this data is. And then we overlay it with IRS data. So California, Illinois, Nebraska, Hawaii is quite interesting. I don't know. And that may just be a fluke. Who knows? And then, of course, New York. So that's where people are coming from, and so that's where our new marketing is going as well. The other thing that we really spent, as we looked at, what are impediments to work? Well, one of it is obviously this child care issue, when I talked about the number of daycares and child care facilities that had closed. So Governor Reynolds brought together a task force of providers and parents and everybody that uses the system. We've invested between her and the legislature over $500 million, but we're seeing a difference. Now, some of this is just coming online. In fact, we toured your one that you did that got some of these grant awards here. But the thing I love is the slot system, where we're seeing companies buy slots, and they're offering them to their employees, and maybe at a small discount. But the nice thing about the slot program is regardless of whether they have people to take the slots, the company is basically making a commitment to that daycare that we will provide you with that income on a regular basis. And in many cases, the difference between these centers breaking even or not. So you're seeing a lot of investment there. The other thing is workforce development has completely changed the way they approach assistance, right? It used to be, everybody thought of it as the unemployment office, right? And so now it is the business engagement office. Doesn't that just sound much better, right? It's much more inviting. And what it is, before, when you were drawing unemployment, maybe in week 5 or 6, you may get a call from somebody at workforce development, right, to see how things are going. Right now, you get assigned a caseworker from like day 1. And what that person does, so it works for both. It works for the individual that is seeking assistance, but it's also good for the businesses. And I think that's why our labor participation number every single month is going up. And how does it work? It's this. They sit down with the individual to say, what are your impediments to work? Is it a transportation issue, right? Maybe you don't have a driver's license. You can't, I mean, it's not convenient to get to work. Maybe it is a child care issue, you know, or maybe it is just, or maybe it is you absolutely hate what you are doing and you want to be a chef. And so what they can do, now that all with the realignment, all workforce programs are under there, they can assist people and it's working so well. So we're seeing it. Now, the other thing we have to do though is we have to welcome Iowans, right? We have to welcome new Iowans. So we need a talent attraction plan. So how are we approaching that? Well, first of all, we know that it begins with tourism. It begins with a visit. And I would challenge any of you to think of a great experience you had from vacation and visiting someplace. And you thought, wow, I could see myself living here, right? But there's next questions. And I tell you, in fact, I'm getting ready to go in about 2 weeks. Two of my grandsons live in Long Island. And so every year when Joel and I go to the Hamptons to visit our kids, now there's the Hamptons and then there's the working class of the Hamptons. They would be part of the working class. They don't have a trust fund. But when we would go visit them, it's a beautiful, beautiful area. And we always think, well, maybe we could retire here, close to 2 of our grandsons, until we figure out how it costs to live in the Hamptons, and that quickly goes away. But, so we know it begins with the visit. The other thing we did is everything we do at IEDA and IFE is research-based, right? Everything. And if it doesn't work, we change it. And so during COVID, it seemed completely tone deaf to basically market for people to visit or invest in our state when nobody left their basements. They could. And so we used that time to basically ask some questions, national survey. So we did a national research project and we asked, did COVID change the way you look at the place you call home? 7 out of 10 said yes, and they would consider relocating. But look at the demographics. We're talking 30-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 40-year-olds. I mean, this is exactly what we need, right? And so then we asked them, what would you move for, right? So what would you move for? And so here's what they said. So if you looked at this, this is just updated brand new data. The first set said affordability, right? So cost of living is still number 1. These are in order. The second one was economic vitality then, which meant if I disrupt my family's life or my life and I relocate and it doesn't work out, is there another position in the marketplace that could use my skills? The third thing was outdoor rec, which was off the charts. So they wanted trails and parks and swimming pools, right? And oh, by the way, they want to be connected the whole time so they can share that with all of us, including what they had for lunch that day, which I never have understood. And then they do arts and culture. So really, that hasn't changed because when we have number 3 culture, it's all of that. It's all of that quality of life. But look what's taking number 2, safety. This is huge. Now the good thing for us, from marketing perspective, is cost of living, affordability, number 1. I was just ranked one of the most affordable place in the nation to live from a cost of living, right? I think we're number 3 on most affordable for housing, right? And they see Iowa as being a very safe place. So you're gonna see a lot of our marketing. Now we can't play the video here today, but go on, if you would, when you get home, go to thisisiowa.com and watch the video. We've done 3 national runs, and it is breathtaking. So we took all the research, because the other thing is when we asked people, now that we knew what they wanted, what they would relocate for, then we said, well, gosh, we check all the boxes. So what do you think of Iowa? And their response was much like that New York Times reporter. Where in the world is Iowa, right? And so we knew that we really had a brand problem in the national marketplace. And so we're changing it. So if you listen to the narrative, it talks about rolling hills meet low bills, and you can basically live big in Iowa. And then we measured it. So the results are quite frankly astounding. So our positives went up 20%. Our negatives actually went down 50%. Now again, they were only like 13 to begin with because nobody knew who we were. But still 50% is a decrease, right? But look at landscapes, increased from 46 to 67. And we know that's what's moving people. So that's important. And of course the friendliness of our people, which we know. So now what are we doing with it? It's good to have data, but not if you're not going to move it to action, right? So we are moving it to action. So we're doing a major research project in those traded clusters we talked about, manufacturing, bio, insurance, and finance. We're going to do a deep dive of the skill sets that's needed. And then we're going to work with the alum associations. We're doing our first pilot program with Drake, and then we'll reach out to the 3 universities. And we're going to say, we know in bio that we need this person with this degree program, and we need them with X amount of years of experience, and you're going to help us connect with them. So you've got the list. We're going to ask you to use your list. They won't give it to us, of course. But we're going to ask you to use the list, and we are going to actually market them, and we are actually going to connect them with a job in Iowa. And we are hiring a firm to do this, so stay tuned because we think this is going to be really game-changing. So we're taking, again, the brand that's now getting a higher profile that's rising all the time nationally, and now we're going to really be a little bit more deliberate and intentional about job opportunities. All right, infrastructure. Infrastructure is broad. The 2 things I'm going to talk about are the things that have been impediments to our growth. Broadband deployment, we learned you could run the world from here, right, during COVID. And so people expect that. So between the governor and the legislature, we are investing about $1 billion in private investment as well, because this is matched with the private sector, in broadband. So we know that that's going to be really important. The area that's lagged is we need that 42,000 houses by the year 2030. And that's across the spectrum. So that's everything from supportive housing to homeless, we're really seeing in our urban centers, which is becoming a problem, all the way to market rate housing, right? And everything in between. And so we believe, based on the awards that we have made through our programs, and based on what we're seeing on building permits coming in on a yearly basis, and I have to tell you, even with interest rates, we're not seeing, I don't know what the bankers are saying, but we're not seeing a slowdown, at least in the portfolio of housing, because we lend to banks for first-time homeowners and people at income qualifying. We're not seeing that go down at all, which is shocking to me. So we do a number of programs, and if you think about it, your whole region has really utilized many of our programs. And so we have housing. The other thing that we're doing is we talk about Industry 4.0. What that means is really automation and changing the way that we do, manufacture and do products. I believe the construction industry is poised to really take advantage of this. So we're doing a pilot project with Iowa State University School of Design, Architect School, and Engineering School. And they're building a model. So we bought printers, and then we're working with Fort Dodge Community College, actually has the large printer. Iowa State has a small printer. What Iowa State is doing is testing different concrete, because these are concrete printed homes, right? Now I will tell you, this bottom home is not an affordable home. That is a Showplace in Austin. But what Iowa State is doing is they're testing different products in the concrete to bring down the carbon footprint, because so many companies are going towards net zero by the year, many of them before 2050. And so we're testing like spent nuclear, not nuclear, we don't have nuclear, spent wind blades, right? Because what do you do with a wind blade after, they go to a landfill and they just sit there? And so we're grinding those up and we're testing them in the concrete. The other thing we're testing in these things is for storm rating. These things aren't going anywhere during a storm because they're completely concrete, and energy efficiency because they're very, very high. We have a problem right now that we have one insurance company that is not taking any more clients for policies for home ownership. And you're seeing this in hurricane areas, it's going to be becoming a real concern. And so I think it's the way we build things going forward. Now, if you don't want it to look like a concrete bunker, you can certainly make it look very, very traditional. But we do believe that this is the way of the future, and that the data is startling. And then, of course, we're looking also from a housing perspective, looking in downtown and looking up, right? You have these beautiful buildings in our downtown. I mean, it's just, they're unbelievable. And now look at the transformation of this one, right? And then they're gonna have market rate housing above, and these places, and even the smallest of communities, much smaller than what you have here, we're seeing market rate rent in these rehabs, and we're seeing waiting lists for them. So we know this works. And the thing I love about this, not as only dealing with the housing issue, but it's also gaining some stability for retail or whatever on the first floor that seems to ebb and flow. From a sustainability point, I always use this in the presentation because this is a calling card for Iowa. More and more companies, like I said, need to meet these net zero goals. And part of the way they're going to do that is where they source their utilities, right? Iowa has been on this journey for a very, very long time. And when you look at 64% of our power comes from some type of renewable, most of it wind, that is a statistic nobody else can touch. And it is the governor and I just got back from Kosovo, Israel, and Europe, and I tell you, we lead with that in those countries because it's huge, and we're a production economy, so we can still do it affordably, and we can do it with reliability. But what's next for us, I think, are two things. Carbon sequestration, looking at it from a value chain point of view, but I think the other big play for Iowa is actually hydrogen. Iowa can actually produce hydrogen, and we actually have the demand side from companies. So I would stay tuned, because I think future-wise, those are things we're going to do. All right, innovation. The sector that is the most manufacturing, which is so important to us, I told you it was our largest growth state product, is going through what economists call the fourth industrial revolution, which is what? Well, if you think about it, this is how important it is from a GDP point of view. Again, really good paying jobs. This is Industry 4.0. So it is about robotics and automation and additive manufacturing. In fact, we were just at a ribbon cutting with Collins Aerospace, where they literally are printing parts. They're going in aircraft out of metal, right? So these parts are printed, and they're parts that can't be tooled by any machine. It's actually, it's just transformational. And so this is what manufacturing looks like today. And so what the state decided to do was that we wanted to help our companies on this journey, not the Collins Aerospace or the John Deere's. They're already well down this path. It's really those smaller, medium-sized companies that are important to the supply chain, and help them along the way. And we're doing it in partnership with Cirrus, who's helping with this. Now, the reason we're doing this, one is because we've got this issue. If you think there will be about all the baby boomers that are working in our manufacturing plants today, all you have to do is tour to see that it's an aging workforce, right? Well, there's a statistic that says 10,000 baby boomers are exiting our workforce across all sectors nationally a day. So we have to have that pipeline, right? So we have a smaller pipeline coming in. Now we're recruiting people, and we're organically growing with birthing more children. That will take a while, so we need to be able to do automation. And it is not, people aren't losing their jobs today. It's just a matter of taking care of what we see coming in the future. The other thing is it's increasing productivity. We're seeing anywhere from 10 to 35% increase in productivity with these grants. It is phenomenal. I told you the bio was our deepest sector. The other reason I like the bio sector so much is not only because we own biofuels. The good thing about this sector is these jobs pay about 85% more than the average wage in the marketplace. But this is our future. This is actually where we are seeing tremendous advances for Iowa. So instead of just doing fuels, right, we're going to think like a petroleum company. We're going to harvest chemicals from that ethanol and biodiesel, right? Building block chemicals for manufacturing, whether it's in plastics or fiber. We can do new plant molecules. This stuff right now, I've never seen so much outside money chasing it. Precision and digital agriculture, we should absolutely own that space. We should never concede that space to anyone else. Vaccines and diagnostics and immunotherapies. I mean, we've been doing it on an animal platform for a long time. Now we're seeing it on the human platform. And we're also seeing with COVID, we sent too much stuff overseas, right? When you've got kids that can't get what is it, the antibiotics, is it amoxicillin? Because there is a shortage, that is unbelievable. We can't, so we need to bring all of that back to the US, and that's what you're seeing happen right now. And then medical innovations. This is really around medical devices with the University of Iowa Medical School. Years ago, doctors like to tinker, right? When they see an implement that or a process that could be done differently, or a device, and we sent that all to Minnesota to be manufactured, and we're going to take that back, right? Because, and they're just doing an amazing thing. In fact, there's one company that we've looked at investing in the state, and it is, as a cancer survivor, this was very intriguing to me. Because radiation is a very difficult thing to go through with cancer, right? I mean, it's one of those that it does kill the cancer, it kills everything else. Now they have a device that you can ingest that will actually pinpoint and grab the cancer cells through radiation, and it's not so invasive. And the clinical trials are absolutely amazing. This is the stuff we're doing in Iowa. So now that when we get that tested, we need to make sure that it's manufactured here as well. So let's talk about the economy. So we're going to start macro. We're going to go macro, and then we're going to go down to Iowa. Jamie Dimon, I do like to follow Jamie Dimon. He's interesting. He first said we're going to have an economic hurricane. And then he says we may have a recession, we may not, which I thought was very helpful, right? I mean, that's extremely helpful for all of us. The problem is nobody really knows. The best economists, we're just guessing here, right? Because there are so many headwinds that this economy has nationally, but yet there are some anomalies, and the job market's one. But let me tell you what I follow. This is our federal debt. This is concerning, right? I mean, think about it. Look at, when we talk about student loan forgiveness, do you see how much it is? $482 billion. When you look at our interest is $475 billion. This is not sustainable, right? I don't see us growing out of this. Now, certainly growth will help, but we have to stop spending. And if you look at this, now honestly, I understand in COVID, and there was a time where we needed to get money on the street because it was important, because none of us knew what was happening in business. We were shuttering businesses. Whoever thought we live in a world where civil authority was actually shutting down businesses, right? So I get that, but this relief went on way, 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 way too long, right? It kept people out of the workforce. Again, not sustainable, and we're still spending as if COVID was yesterday. It has got to stop. And so again, not immune from any of this. And then, of course, record inflation. Due to all the spending, there was going to be some inflation, there was no doubt about it, because of supply chain constraints, right? So there was. But most of the inflation, I will tell you, that is because of this spending that continues to go on. And then you had the feds that were extremely slow to call it what it was, right? They kept talking about transitory and it's temporary. Well, it was not temporary, and because it was too sticky. And now look at everywhere, no wonder. And so people, even though wages are going up, and wages are going up now, it's not keeping pace with inflation. Now we are seeing it come down, and then look at what happened in our commodity world, right? Again, policies matter. Look at what California is doing to us, right? Whether it's on poultry or whether it's on livestock, they're creating these crazy rules that, because they know nothing about livestock at all, that is really creating hardships because of transitions that we're going to have to do in our commodity section. So, and then again, the interest rates. The feds need to take a pause, I think, at this point, because what they're going to do, they're so determined to get to that 2%, right, that I don't know what kind of havoc they're gonna make in the marketplace. So for us, we're not immune to that. However, you know, those are the headwinds going on nationally, internationally, that we have no control on. What we do control though is our own house, right? And we've done a really good job. Between the governor and the legislature, we are fiscally responsible. We live within our means, right? We're still able to have large reserves and invest in education and quality, you know, water quality and mental health and all the things that we need to invest in. And so many accolades. You know, we were ranked as one of the #1 states coming out of COVID because of the policies that were made. And this act. And in the meantime, we're still cutting taxes. This is unbelievable. I believe that we will be at a 5.5% flat rate for corporate by the year 2026. Absolutely remarkable. We went from one of the highest in the country down to basically a number we can compete at. And then think about 3.9% personal by the year 2026. Again, and there's legislators and the governor would like to even make that lower. Game changing. And then, of course, the one I'm really excited about is getting rid of retirement income, right? Because I'm closer to that end. You interns probably don't really care about that right now. But there will be a day you will care about that, right? And so we love that because now I'm hearing stories of people saying, yeah, we're still going to go away for the winter. We're not going to stay here for the winter, but we're not going to move our residency anymore because we don't have to. And we're going to keep our wealth in Iowa. So great. The other thing we're doing is we are going to lead by example that we have to cut government, right? We just really have to do it. You want to see property taxes? Well, basically, it's government that's paying a lot of, now I'm not saying government's not important because it is. Your counties and your cities do a great job. But we have to look at doing things more efficiently. So the governor's going to lead by example. We went from 37 agencies down to 16. We believe conservatively, the savings will be over $200 million. I think it's going to be a lot higher than that. And so I will end on quality of life. So again, we know we have to do this. And once again, Iowa has a great story. We've already been investing in trails. I mean, you look at RAGBRAI, but you look at the amount of trails that we have been building all across our communities and the parks and reclaiming these. And then, of course, we've offered up some programmings, and you all do pretty well with that, with our stuff. You could compete a little bit more, but when you compete, you usually do very well. So that's the game plan. I'm bullish on Iowa, regardless of what's happening nationally. I think that we have a compelling story to tell, and I think other people are beginning to take notice. So thank you all. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Debbie. It's time to be on that list again, because you heard a lot of information from Debbie. And it gets heavy in the morning when you're having breakfast, but it's very interesting information that I thought while we're there. I'll tell the story. For interns, radio is where I used to work. I was in radio, and I was the news director here at KLGA in Alabama for 10 years, and I was in Storm Lake for 10. I worked for several groups that owned those stations. One was the Hedberg Broadcasting Group out of Spirit Lake. And Paul Hedberg was the owner at the time. Paul passed away here a couple of years ago. Anyway, in February of 1991, I was sitting there doing the 5 o'clock newscast. And I remember the date because it was right after I got married by a couple of months. But I was doing the newscast over in Storm Lake. And radio stations still do the newscast with obits or obituaries, funeral announcements in them, because many small towns have 1 day a week papers, 2 day a week papers, so it's very important that we get the information out there on a daily basis. And I get on the 5 o'clock news and I finish the weather and I pick the spot. It's time for the funeral announcements, but I go grab them and there are no funeral announcements. So I put my mic on and I said, it's time now for the funeral. The reason you have to say this is because you have to pay for the sponsor too, so you can get your ad. So I get on and I say, it's time now for funeral announcements. We have no funeral announcements tonight, but we hope to have some tomorrow. I put my news away in the newsroom and I go out to the front office and the phone's ringing. And I had forgotten that Paul had been there that day, and I didn't realize he was listening to the 5 o'clock newscast on KAYL in Storm Lake, one of the stations. As I pick up the phone, I know KAYL. He says, "Bob, how may I help you?" And I hear, Paul's a big guy. I don't know if you ever knew Paul or not. He was a big guy, tall, a voice to go with that barrel chest of his, and he goes, "Jennings! What the hell is that?" "Damn, that was a funny line, but don't you ever do it again." And as I turned, and I'm starting to walk toward the front door, Margaret Weber, the program director for KAYL, came out of her office, and she said, "Bob, while you were on the phone, 3 people just called and volunteered to die tonight so that we got to." So I thought I'd give you a little lecture, and I'm now again on Brains list. So, our elves have been busy. They've been working, busy with the communities and businesses and wrapping up Great Christmas in July gift giveaways. So everyone needs to stand. If they find a decorative number under your chair.
No, under the charter plates.
Oh, it says. Oh, they changed it. That's what you You have a number. Decorative number.
Charter plates, and if you don't have one, you have a comment at your table, look again someplace else, because there is one per table, and one table has 2.
Oh, was it ours? That one. Oh, okay. The one under that one? No.
As you can see, we have numerous businesses that were very giving this year and provided these special gifts that are for all of you today. We want to thank them very much. Let's give them a round of applause. Debbie, I personally want to thank you again for coming. That was a wealth of knowledge. I was taking notes, as you probably saw. Thank you very much. I also have something very special too, because I got a surprise today. And I should have said this when I was talking about the interns. But my son, Patrick, absolutely drove up here from Waukee, and he was one of our interns, and he came for the countywide breakfast. So, thank you, I also want to close by saying that all of you in this room make a difference, and I'm not just saying that, I do mean it. I know just about everyone in this room. I know what you do. I work with you. I get to meet with you. I get to hear all the different ideas that want to be developed or some of the challenges that we all are dealing with. And it's so wonderful that you're still trying to make a difference where you live. Because if you don't, it's really going to make rural Iowa suffer even more. And we need every one of you who are sitting in this room to continue to make that difference. Because I'm challenging you right now to make sure that you're leading. And when somebody asks you, could you help us? Just like I had special helpers for all of this, just like all of my committee members that have stepped up and helped me throughout the years. They're making a difference. So please continue to do that. And I want to thank you all for coming and spending the morning with us today here in Christmas in July in Cassuth, Palo Alto County, and our lovely little elves are going to be handing out something very, very special. Did you get a gift?
No, that's the answer.
Oh, we still have one left. Oh, you guys, you have to look.
No, that one's taken.
Oh, that's taken, oh, okay, sorry. Okay, whoops. But as you leave, our elves are gonna be busy distributing, but I do need to have our board of directors, and Debbie, would you please go to the front so we can have a photo op, please? Thank you.